Oh, we forgot to mention the Atlassian outage.
Actually, that's timely, right? There's the Atlassian outage, and thankfully our confluence that this podcast is
we're not affected.
Not impacted.
Welcome to GCP Life. This is episode number 12, a show where we discuss Google Cloud and tech. I'm your host, Stephen Bancroft. This show is sponsored by Kasna. And on today's show, we delve into some new Google Cloud data features. We take a look at what Lapsus has been up to. We look at distributed Google Cloud Edge. Google fights misinformation. And we have another list to look at. But before we get to any of that, I want to welcome the co-host that's with me every fortnight. It's Dave Wall. How are you going, Dave?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Steve. Great to be back for another fortnight.
I know, it's good to be back. Hardly feels like a fortnight, does it?
No, it's really flown. I guess, though, with the compressed weeks, or public holiday this weekend, next Monday, it's a crazy time.
Yeah, we are recording a day earlier than usual, and the show will be out a day earlier than usual as well, because here in Australia we have a public holiday on Friday. So it's been a mad scramble to change our timetables around and get everything done, especially considering we're both on the same project.
Yeah, it's tight. We're trying to get as many things like, hey, what are we going to get done this week? All right, let's just pretend that we've got 5 days and make it 4.
And the back-to-back meetings, trying to work this thing out, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But, the podcast can't wait. So, we made the time and...
Oh, we have to hit that schedule. That's right. It's got to be done.
That's right. We don't want to leave our listeners hanging.
That's it. I use Plex at home. I'm sure a few of our listeners do. And now it's got this new feature, this global search feature.
Yeah, I've seen some articles about it. I haven't had a chance to use it on my own one yet. So, love to hear
Yeah, pretty cool. You can link it in with your... existing streaming services, and then when you search, it just tells you where that show is that you're after. Cool.
That's good because we've it was the bad old days where you had to have Foxtel and which packages did you have, and then we got Netflix and it had everything in it, and now it's okay, we got Netflix and Prime and Disney, and can it do ABC Kids? That's the killer app for
me. I wouldn't be surprised if it would, because I saw SBS On Demand in the list.
That bodes well then. Yeah.
You been up to anything?
Yeah, it's actually been a busy time. I took the family away on the weekend and went down to Phillip Island, and I had a run-in with a robot in the chocolate factory, which, that was unexpected.
That's that chocolate factory there in Phillip Island?
Yeah.
I know the one. Yes,
it was way better a tour than I was expecting. We got there and thought, this will be a bit, kind of cliche, but no, it was really cool, and they put a lot of thought to it. And then we get to the cafe at the end and ordered coffees and stuff, and then a robot came out to serve it. Kind of picture, the ones they have in the Amazon warehouses with a tray table, or on Jabba's sail barge when R2-D2 comes out with the drink tray. It's kind of like that.
I know the one. I know the robot. Well, those of you that are around the 80s, the Dr. Edelstein robot that used to come out to tell the next patient to come in. That's that's what he had. Yeah. I'm going camping this weekend. Ooh. And I've got to keep the kids happy. They've got to have their devices and stuff. And
very important. When you're out in the great outdoors,
exactly. And you got to have your mobile connection when you're out there. So I have a Netgear 5G modem, and I had an antenna in my four-wheel drive for a long time, but I hadn't sort of married the two up. It was from an older, just kind of hadn't married the two up. Anyway, I went through the whole exercise on the weekend and wired it all in and got it all nicely set up, and it's great now. You just turn the ignition on and boom, the modem detects that the ignition's come on and it starts up. It's on the high gain antenna, so I'm hoping when I get out into the regional areas, I'll have some good throughput. And yeah, we've got Wi-Fi in the truck now, and I can, be in a campsite and it's running off the auxiliary battery in the truck,
They got
So I
power
can just
for
have
days. Yeah.
Wi-Fi, at the campsite.
Yeah, that's so cool. I didn't realize that you could chuck a big antenna on it and.
Yeah.
And how are you? Have you got like that mounted in the car? Has it got like a holder, or is it just kind of loose with a cable?
Well, this is the thing. I actually wanted to have it so I could take it out, because I might like to take that out and put it in the camper trailer, or sometimes we might just want to have it on the table with us, or I might need to take it out to use it for some other purpose. So, yeah, I've just got it like in a pouch thing, like up on the dash. Like, so where my phone is, in the phone holder, and I've got like my tire pressure gauge and my GPS system, they're all kind of like hanging off the window on their suction cup things. There's a little pouchy thing I've got there as well. And it's slipped into that, and I've just made this like loom of like third-party USBs and cables and things that comes up, all cable tied together. It's quite neat, right? And it just plugs into that. So if I need to pull that out, I can pull that out and just unplug it and take it away.
Cool. I might, show me the item one time. I might see if I can print you off a mount for it. You can make it nice and neat. You can still take it out.
Well, that'd be interesting how I could mount it in there and then slip the thing in there and then pop it out. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, that might work. Yeah, what I've done is effectively that anyway, but with this pouch that sticks onto the dash. So that's been my little tech adventures during the last fortnight.
Sounds good.
We might get on with the show. We have a few items here. Being a shorter week, I don't have we have enough items. Let's see. We'll talk about what we have here. Google, during the last fortnight, Google had the Google's Data Cloud Summit. Now, I'm not really a data guy. I've studied, I've looked at a bit of data, and I know how to, I know how to export a SQL database and then re-import it, and that's probably about the limit of my data knowledge.
A functional knowledge of data.
Functional knowledge of data. And I've done a bit of the old, Cloud Guru course there for the data engineer, enough to get by. But yeah, they had. I'll link a number of articles in the show notes, but there's one key one that sort of breaks it all down. And effectively, we've ended up with 4 major announcements from Google's Data Cloud Summit. Article here on IT Brief by Ryan Morris Reedy. Talks about the 4 items, and we'll just go through them here. The first thing that sort of talk about is removing all data limits. Today we are announcing the preview of Big Lake. Now this seemed to be the big hitter, this Big Lake thing. Now my understanding is what they've done, well, I don't need to explain my understanding, I can tell you right here. Big Lake allows companies to unify their data warehouses and lakes to analyze data without worrying about the underlying storage format or systems. So, from what I gather, Big Lake is built on BigQuery, and it's sort of it can be combined. It can combine the thing to make just like a huge data lake.
Right. Okay. To give you that additional functionality.
That's right. Big Lake customers gain fine-grained access controls with API interface spanning Google Cloud and open file formats like Parquet and open source processing engines like Apache and Spark. So I'll link a number of articles in the show notes, but it's basically a unified data platform and they're just giving it to you in a single interface.
Awesome. I think for all the data people who listen, that they'll find some very new, interesting ways to implement.
I'm sure. Yeah. It would be akin to Cloudera, Databricks, and Snowflake. So they're all sort of combined lake or warehouse offerings. This is Google's
bringing them up to par now.
Yep. That's right. So that's kind of the first major thing, and that'll get mentioned in another article that's coming up. The next kind of thing this article talks about is remove the limits of data workloads. Now, this is around Vertex AI. Vertex AI will provide customers with an even more streamlined experience to get AI models up into production faster and make maintenance even easier.
And I've done a little bit of Vertex AI as part of a lab. It was like a partner event that I did a couple of weeks back, and it was really nice, especially for someone who's definitely like myself, right? He's definitely not a data scientist, right?
Yeah,
I have no claim to that, but being able to use that and very quickly to build out models and get them deployed. I think making that accessible to people who are, I guess, not quite as far along on the technical journey, people who maybe have more, kind of business knowledge as opposed to data engineering knowledge.
Yep.
It's just a really awesome tool.
Yeah, so we have Vertex AI Workbench, which is now generally available. It brings data and machine learning systems into a single interface. I'm going to speed the thing up at the end of the day, right? That's what that's going to do. Teams have a common tool set across data analytics, data science, and machine learning. They combined a whole bunch of stuff there into one big workbench, which is nice. The next sort of point is extend the reach of data. We have launched connected sheets for Looker and the ability to access Looker data models with Data Studios. I mean, that pretty much says it all, right? So you can use Data Studio now to get access to your data models via Looker. He says a unified BI experience makes it easy to tap into governed, trusted enterprise data, incorporate new data sets and calculations, and collaborate with peers. Now, I'm not a Looker guy, but I'm sure people that are Looker will love this improvement here. And then finally, Google are doubling down on the data cloud partner ecosystem. And they've announced Google Cloud Ready BigQuery, a new validation that recognizes partners' cloud solutions that meet a core set of functional and interoperability requirements. So they've recognized 25 partners in this program. And it reduces the cost for customers associated with evaluating new tools while also adding support for new customer use cases. So in terms of the tool set you have available, they're making more partner tools available for data scientists and data analysts.
Yeah, gotcha. So if you've got a tool that you're using, you're like, oh, actually, yep, this one will integrate with BigQuery. Or if I'm going on that migration, maybe I'm taking it off-prem and bringing it into the cloud.
Maybe it's a licensing thing like they're doing GCVE as well, where you can bring your BYOL. Speaking of that, on-prem to cloud, possibly. They're saying partners like Bloomberg, Equifax, Exabeam, Quantum Metric, Zoom Info have started using Google's data cloud capabilities with built-in BigQuery initiatives. So maybe it's something you can get from the marketplace as well, whereas previously you had to spin it up yourself.
I think there was also some announcements on, I think something to do with Spanner and being able to stream data out of Cloud Spanner.
Yeah, that's right. This article does mention that. Another major innovation we're announcing is Spanner change streams.
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah.
Yeah, so Spanner change streams track Spanner inserts, updates, and deletes to stream the changes in real time across customers' entire Spanner database.
Yeah, very cool. Apparently, I was doing a little bit of reading into this myself, and apparently that was something that was kind of accessible to a number of very large financial services customers, but it was kind of hacky and they were getting it from the back end. And now this will be, like a native managed solution, which is, always better when they're on the table.
One of the articles I will link, I won't go through it in detail, this article, but it does have a line in here, which is Spanner's ability to deliver full asset guarantees in a globally distributed, highly available manner. And it goes on to say, it achieves this feat of computer science by leveraging exotic hardware, including atomic clocks and GPS systems, which allow it to take the exact flow of committed transactions through time and space to a very fine degree.
Yeah, if you've got the use case for it, I think Spanner is a very impressive bit of database technology, right?
Very, very impressive. Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about tracking stuff through time and space using atomic clocks, boy, oh boy, yeah. So that sort of leads me on to the next article, which is, look, it's a financial article, and they're talking about Monis Crespi-Hardit analyst Brian White, who rates Alphabet a buy with 3,850 price target, implying nearly 40% upside, noted that Google's recent Data Cloud Summit saw the company unveil a number of new innovations, all of which boost the strength of Google Cloud. This is an article on Seeking Alpha by Chris Siaka entitled, Amazon and Microsoft may get all the cloud headlines, but don't sleep on Google. Yeah, so he's saying that these new announcements will really strengthens Google's position in the marketplace. He says, while Big Lake was the most significant announcement of the event, as it will expand on Google's BigQuery and extend the cloud data warehouse on top of data lakes in a multi-cloud environment. BigQuery competes with the likes of Snowflake, AWS Redshift, Azure Synapse, with Google describing it as a data lake storage engine to remove data limits by unifying data lakes and warehouses. Essentially, it lets companies unify data warehouses and lakes to analyze their data without worrying about storage formats change or system upheaval.
Right, I think that's a nice, concise way of putting it.
Yeah, and he really likes this, and he thinks it could be a big this is coming from a financial guy that's watching the markets, and he thinks it could be a big upturn for Google in this. And finally, this article here finishes off with White pointed out that Google Cloud has seen rapid growth in recent years, most recently growing revenue 45% year over year in its most recent to $5.4 billion, with the total 21 revenue at $19.2 billion, according to industry research Canalys. So some big figures there. But AWS generated $53.5 billion. So 10 times.
Yeah, wow.
In its most recent quarter. They account for revenue, account for 33% of the market. Microsoft had an estimated 22%, while Google was well behind them at 9%.
It's interesting, though, that then all other cloud providers, including like IBM, I guess Alibaba Cloud, the rest, accounted for 36% of the market. So, I mean, there's a lot of others that would be grouped into that.
Yeah, Oracle, Alibaba, IBM,
Yep.
But I think it's clear that Google Cloud has the highest growth.
Yeah.
Right. I want to maybe see what the growth is on AWS. Are they going forwards or backwards? I don't know. Interesting to know.
I would imagine they're still going up. I think the addressable market is just growing. Like I don't think we've hit the point where like, okay, everyone's in the cloud, because we know that's not the case, right? We're still doing so many migrations. Everyone wants to do the shift, so I think it's just a market that's going to keep growing, and it's on all of the cloud providers to try and grab as much of the pie as they can.
Yeah, it's still the early formation of the universe, and the expansion stage.
Yeah.
So yes, a couple of a little interesting segue there to the data summit side of things. Now, Dave, you wanted to talk about this for a few weeks. Lapsus, what Lapsus have been doing and what they've been up to in the past.
Yeah, it's I'll put a couple of articles. There's certainly in the circles that I've been in, this I don't want to say a company, this group of individuals known as Lapsus have been hitting some very high, very public companies, right? So like they hit Microsoft, they've hit Nvidia, they've hit Samsung, Ubisoft. Like I know one, a vendor that certainly we use, Okta. They also had a breach with Lapsus. What I found to be really interesting with this group is, like, when I saw that they were hitting people, I was, doing some searching around. I was trying to find, okay, like, what are they exploiting? What 0-day is out there that, maybe we need to protect against? And it really seemed that what their kind of MO was a big social engineering exploit, right? So what these guys were doing is they were organizing through Telegram, but they were recruiting kind of, disaffected employees of companies and offering like significant bounties. Like if you were an employee of like one of the big telcos and you had like the ability to do like SIM swaps, one of the threads that I saw was they were offering like 20,000 a week in bounties to do SIM swaps. Yeah, so big time, right? This wasn't just like, looking for someone's like lost credentials or, give me this file. Like they were talking big bickies. Mm. So what they were doing is they would get these people and they might it might be, say, someone in-house, say, I'm not going to I'm not going to name it for any particular company, but right, I'll take an employee and it might be an in-house person or it might be one of their support vendors, someone who'll have some privileged access, and they were getting them on side and they would come at them and they'd be like, okay, you don't have to do much. All you need to do is just accept the 2-factor ping on your device, or we'll do the rest. Right. And that's also why they were paying the bounties for SIM swaps, because then they could cut over like, yours or mine. They could cut our SIM over to one of their devices. They would get the text sent through to them, and they could take over the route for doing 2FA. Right. So yeah, it was a big time social engineering group. In fact, actually, it was interesting. In one of the instances I mentioned Telegram before, is they were not only were they dumping the data in there and recruiting people through Telegram, but they were updating in Telegram about the companies they were hitting as they were hitting them. So they were bragging about being in Microsoft servers and pulling data out. And then Microsoft saw that and were like, oh no. They went, and so Microsoft were able to cancel like the download that was happening because
block them all. That's not very smart.
No. I was reading through some of the attacks they did in some companies. Is they would get access to the environment, and then they might actually have access for a couple of days before they got around to it, and then they would go and like just download a freely available tool to like dump credentials and stuff like just. There wasn't much like high-end technical sneaky 0-day things going on. It was straight up like, I've got credentials, I will go and do whatever I can with those.
Right. It sounds a bit ad hoc as well. Like it's not really targeted. It's kind of just opportunistic.
Whoever they could get. And then they'd just sort of make the most of it. It seems like it was a pretty small group. Like there's been a bunch of arrests in the UK. It seemed like it was like 16 to 21-year-olds that were mostly in this group. Right. So I guess that's was a little bit less organized, perhaps. So yes, it was I think for me, it certainly comes back, or like on the SIM swapping side of things, like just showing the weakness of that as a 2FA.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Like when you're putting, like another company can go and just redirect your SMSs and, I think definitely looking at something like an Authy or Microsoft Authenticator or Okta. Even though Okta had the breach, it wasn't that. It wasn't the Okta service.
Google Authenticator.
Yeah, Google Authenticator.
Yep. So that leads to the question: if they're paying someone $20,000 to do a SIM swap, how are they bankrolling that?
Well, the big thing they would do is once they were in your system, then they'd start the extortion. Right, so they would be pulling data out and extorting you for we're going to release this information unless you pay it. So they must have been getting paid along the way. If they weren't also then maybe just selling that data to somebody else. Right. Stolen Bitcoin or crypto lockers or something. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, but, when they're like $20,000 a week for for credential access is pretty shocking. Actually, one of the other things they did, which I think was possibly the most offensive, is that they would pay for like Slack session tokens. They would get in, they would use Slack to then convince support personnel to reset some passwords. And then when the companies were they realized that they were being exploited and they were having like a SWAT call, they were joining the SWAT calls with their demands. Really rub salt in the wound.
Because they got carte blanche access to everything.
Carte blanche access, right? And how many of us have been on a SWAT call and was 20, 30, 40 people, who are all these people? It's all the stakeholders all jump in and the people who are actively hacking you.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
That's a classic.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
You think about it as a hacker, that's... You want to know. You want to. I suppose you would want to know, what are they doing? How are they responding to it? They're running around like flies, what are they? And this is you get straight access to find out what's going on.
Yeah, you sit there and go, you're getting warmer. Oh no, cold.
No, that's not quite right. I don't think they're doing that at all. I can tell you exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, so yes, not a good time for a bunch of companies. I haven't seen any new attacks recently, so I hope maybe the arrests did actually get the team. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I mean, just all you got to do is have a look at their Wikipedia page, and you can see 2022 the group was involved in several cybersecurity crimes. Leaking the source code of employees' credentials from NVIDIA, a breach at Microsoft, 37 gig of source code, a breach from Mercado Libre, e-commerce company, source code of Samsung Galaxy phones, of course Ubisoft, Okta, and 70 gig dump from Globant. Yeah. So they've been busy little boys, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's very. They have to go to their room.
All based on simple social engineering and just taking advantage of our day-to-day tools that we use, like Slack and
for sure. And the whole thing of yes, we have to trust our people to get the job done, but then we have partners, and the trust circle gets wider and wider.
All right, well, after that little piece of news, let's move on. Let's have a look at something that a new thing that Google has announced. I really don't know a way to describe this other than a thing. And I had to sort of scratch my head to try and actually understand what this is all about. But Google announces fully managed distributed cloud edge. So according to Google, Google Distributed Cloud Edge, the GDC, will enable customers to run 5G core and radio access network RAN functions at the edge and support additional enterprise use cases, including anomaly detection on the factory floor, real-time inventory with robots, scrubbing sensitive data locally before sending it into the cloud, and using sensors to improve operational efficiency with sensors. So my sort of understanding of this is if you've got like a factory, which is what they mentioned in that little piece there, and you might have thousands of IoT devices, I guess, and they're collecting data, they're doing stuff, and you kind of need to do like some processing on that, pre-processing, a bit of work, maybe you're removing a bit of PII or whatever. That can all be done in this cloud edge, which would live on-prem, I guess.
Yeah, so my read of it is that it is basically a way of you having your GCP environment on-prem, or at least a subset of it on-prem. It's still, running in the same sort of software stack. It's still managed by Google, but it gives you that ability to have it sort of like in your own local data center. And I know, like on my side, I worked for a company for a long time that did manufacturing, and they had a very low, or a very high latency requirement, that very low latency needed to the systems for PLCs, any of the automation stuff. So anything where you could bring it. So that's why, we had on-prem servers. But in a cloud world where you don't want to manage everything anymore, this sort of, I guess, will give you an option where you can still run your cloud services, still have a managed platform, but bring it closer to the source.
Yeah, right. I hadn't considered the latency use case. That's absolutely right. If you're shipping everything back to, on cloud over your link, absolutely latency could be an issue.
Definitely.
If you've got it locally, yeah, that's great. Oh, and low bandwidth would be an issue as well. Maybe in regional areas where you got low bandwidth and you want to do as much as you can local before you push the final product into the cloud.
Yeah, true. You might still have very expensive like MPLS services or I don't know if so much, but if this service is available in every region, but certainly on which side of the firewall in China, for example, that can certainly impact how much you want to send back.
Yeah, so this line here sort of summarizes that. GDC Edge appliances, so it must come in an appliance format, are designed for use cases where bandwidth and latency limitations prevent organizations from processing data from devices like cameras and sensors back in cloud data centers. Yes, that's exactly what it's for.
Mm-hmm. Actually, you're right, though. Thinking on that, on the cameras alone, bandwidth can be very high. If you've got loads of cameras and you wanted that data, actually, I want to process some of that on-prem and I only want to send certain clips. Yeah.
Yeah, you might have motion sensor, right? And you only want to capture it when there's motion. So you do that little bit of processing on-prem and then you just record it when there's motion, and that's the bit that you send to the cloud to save.
Yeah, for sure.
It might be a use case, yeah. Yeah, interesting. With a comprehensive portfolio of fully managed hardware and software, Google Distributed Cloud brings Google's AI and analytics solutions closer to where your data is being generated and consumed, so you can harness real-time insights across deployments.
I mean, I remember a few years ago there being I think there's an Azure on-prem service. I don't know if there's an AWS one, to give you that kind of same level. So I think, again, this might just be, Google coming up to parity.
All right. So from one Google feature to another Google feature, Google unrolls a search feature to tackle misinformation. Now, I really like this. I consider myself a bit of a skeptic, bit of a critical thinker, sort of enlightened in that respect.
Oh, jeez. just to put it I'm kind of an unenlightened fellow.
I'm not saying you're unenlightened, but
I'm sorry, Professor. I'll allow you to continue.
I don't go as far as wearing the tinfoil hat, mind you, but I like to see these companies applying some critical thinking and trying to remove the disinformation from the web. The search giant has introduced 2 new attributes: information literacy tips for breaking topics and a new highly cited label for news stories. And they're also expanding the About This Result feature, which gives users information about the site hosting the result. One other thing they can do too is they can front load trusted sources. So and I've got an interesting point about this one here. A lot of national and global news starts life as local, but news brands with large reach can easily drown out the original report, right, which Google has said it wants to elevate in order to bring people unique perspectives. Right, so think about what that's saying there, right? So the story starts with a local newspaper, and then eventually your big Murdoch's papers get them, right?
Percolates.
Yeah, now I can't help thinking this is a strike back to the recent media laws that meant that Google had to pay for article scraping from those big news outlets.
Big ones. Right. So let's rank some of the original sources that might be less litigious.
Yeah. Why not? Why not push them out of the picture? Well, you're going to make me pay for your articles now? Well, I'm not going to use them. And this is a way they're going to use them less and less. They're going to go to the original source of the article.
See where it came from. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's my skeptical brain thinking there's an ulterior motive here.
I suppose things can be two things, right? Like something can be a good idea and it can also help the bottom line.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
I do think that the like having the tips that are on there, I think that highly cited label, like, okay, this isn't just like, again, like some tinfoil hat conspiracy. Oh, I saw it on the internet. It's like, well, yeah, but like no one else is referring to this article. Like it's just because it's there doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, having that tip there would be. It doesn't mean they're going to read it though, does it?
No, true.
But it gives you a comeback, right? You can get, if someone tries to fire that article out and say, "Well, look at this," say, "Well, Google's not really recommending that article as authoritative."
Yeah, I think those people would probably come back and be like, "Oh, well, that's just what Google wants you to think."
Oh, big Google, big Google.
There's no arguing with some people.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you're dealing with human behaviour here, right? And you can add as many of these tags and tips and flags and things as you want. But I mean, if people have got it in their brain that that's what they want to believe, then they're going to believe it, right? It's hard to switch them the other way around. But at least Google's trying, and I like to see that.
Yeah, I think that's all he can do, right?
Yeah,
it can lead a horse to water and all that.
And look, one last item here to finish the show off. We love a good list on this show.
I
love a good list, and I love going through a list and talking about the
I want to see a list of your top 10 favourite lists.
Lists, yeah. This list here, this is from the Enterprises Project. Kevin Casey's written this up. This is apparently a Red Hat supported site. Which is good. They do a lot of outreach like this. This is 5 things CIOs should know about cloud service providers. 5 things. We're going to go through and have a look at the 5 things. So number 1, take a holistic view of cost. Most IT leaders see the value, if not the sheer necessity, of the cloud by now. The cloud is the most cost-effective model. But as we know, right, you've got to use the right services for the right thing, right? It can get expensive if your app has not been designed for cloud. It's not cloud optimized.
Yes, definitely. If you're like, I've got 1,000 virtual machines and I'm just going to have 1,000 compute engine instances and like for like that's going to be expensive.
No, that's right. And you don't want to be doing, unnecessary queries that you don't need to do and silly things like that, right? And these all kind of be cloud optimized. Use, use serverless where you can, things like that. And it's interesting in this holistic view of costs here that he points out. He says this is among other reasons why hybrid cloud environments are expanding. So he's saying, on-prem is cheaper in some situations and cloud is cheaper in other situations. And then this is the reason why hybrid is expanding. It doesn't need to be an all or nothing decision. Half notes, data egress charges, phantom instances that aren't doing anything, or over-provisioning more broadly as 3 of the top cost-related pain points.
Yeah, I think just having the service is one thing. I think it's having the people to make use of the service. Again, if you pick up someone and they just, okay, I'll run a compute engine instance, that's one thing. But no, actually, look, all you were running on that server was like a shell script, once a day. Yeah. We don't need a whole box for that. Let's, we can use scheduling and.
So I want to answer all of these in this particular article, right? In this particular point, he says, half notes, data egress charges, right? So design your solution to minimize data egress charges, right? That's the first thing you should be doing, right? Phantom instances that aren't doing anything. Well, if you've got proper infrastructure as code and you've got proper, access controls on all your projects, then you shouldn't have phantom instances lying around, right? In fact, if you do have instances that are only doing stuff in business days, in business hours, have a schedule that switches them off, right? You've immediately halved your costs, right? And over provisioning, right? So the only the big sell with cloud, the big plus with cloud is the elasticity of it, right? The fact that you can effectively under provision something, right? Almost down to zero. In fact, zero if you're using serverless, and then just expand dynamically. Now, if you're not doing that in with your cloud project in cloud, then you're doing cloud wrong. You're doing cloud like you're treating it like on-prem stuff, right? On-prem. You don't need to be doing that.
Yeah. Right, for sure. You make use of the features that are there.
Yeah. If something is open provision, that's because, in my opinion, it's been built by someone that only understands physical on-prem world, and they're trying to apply that methodology into cloud. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show before, but I saw a project one time where someone had provisioned 2 persistent disks on the same VM with the intention of mirroring those disks.
Well, I have mirrored disks in my physical server, so
right. So that's that's not what you do, right?
Yeah, I think to your point there, right, is that being able to actually make use of the features. Like I was working on a project not that long ago where we wrote the application for the customer and it was all cloud functions, right? There was cloud functions and PubSub. And the running cost for that thing, I think the most expensive part of it was secret manager calls. Like it was like $3 a month to run it. The amount of business value that was coming out of this thing that had no, like unless it was being used, it didn't cost anything.
Yep. And it was doing all the work.
Yep.
So, I don't know about what he's saying there. Hybrid, in my opinion, hybrid situation is just a failed migration. Really, it's just kind of a thing it should just only be temporary. And if you're in hybrid for a long time, you've got a situation where you've got stuff you can't migrate. Get away from that. Start using IAP, right? Set yourself up with with a zero trust model. Right, rather than using MPLS and VPNs and all that kind of stuff, it just drives me nuts. Right? But going on, he does make a couple of good points here. Identify where cloud delivers value, right? Absolutely, and where it doesn't is the key. Enables longer, wider view that is cost aware rather than cost obsessed. Right. Let's move on to number 2. Map business strategy to cloud service provider capability. So broadly what he's saying with this one here is pick the cloud service provider that will be able to deliver the solution the best. Right. So I think this kind of dovetails into like the multi-cloud conversation, right? So, Google's clearly the leader when it comes to AI, right? So if your solution's completely AI, then absolutely do Google, right? If you're a customer that came to Casno, of course we want you to use Google, right? Just use Google for everything, right? Of course, we always want that. But to be fair, inside the company, they may have other things, goals that Azure or AWS may do better for them.
Yeah, true. They might, really want Azure Active Directory, for example, or there's no reason why you can't just have your cake and eat it too. Yeah, absolutely. So, pick the best service provider that's going to best suit the solution that you need. And if you need to, you can just establish, private connections between your clouds. You don't need to backhaul it on-prem.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Just mega ported everywhere. Yeah. Number 3, security is still your responsibility. So here we get into the shared responsibility model, right? Don't overlook security. Make sure you're building out your projects correctly with the correct amount of security. We talked about the greater than 8K bug in Cloud Armor last week. That's the kind of thing you need to be aware of. Listen to the show and you'll get aware of that. But keep in mind that Google Cloud would employ more security engineers than most places employ all engineers.
Yeah, and they've got they've their job is to do that, as opposed to I've got my infrastructure team and hey, I think there was a CVE this week. Can you go check that out?
Exactly. Yeah, their security team is doing security, and they've got hundreds of them, and they've got to, whatever security they have to apply, they've got to apply it to everywhere, every client, everywhere. So sometimes you'll hear the argument that cloud is not secure. Well, I think we're kind of over that, right? And we know that Google has to make things secure for everybody that's using their services. So that's a big responsibility. So they've got to keep it up.
Yeah, in fact, I heard an anecdote actually just the other day, and they were talking about it. You know, we're doing a lot of GCVE stuff recently, but they were talking about the management of like that VMware environment, and there was a high-rated CVE, and all GCVE nodes worldwide were patched prior to the patches being available publicly on like the VMware site for traditional engineers to be able to go ahead and do it. Like, it was already done.
Yeah, before you've even received the email in your inbox to say, "Hey, we've got this, patch available." Yeah. All the Google GCVE nodes are done.
All done. They were done for you. Didn't have to worry about it.
Didn't have to touch it. Right, it's all done, and that's all automated as well behind the scenes. That would be, yeah, absolutely. They've done all the work up front. Look, and in the same vein as security, number 4 on the list is risk management, right? So when it comes to data privacy, GDPR, and compliance, Google, we've got a shared responsibility model there as well, right? So Google will do their bit as long as you're doing your bit, and your risk compliance will be correctly looked after. And the final on this list, and we talk about this, I think we mentioned this in an earlier show, internal talent still matters, right? You need the people with the skills to do the job. The skills might transition, right? They might look a little bit different, but at the end of the day, I was a system administrator for a long time. What are you doing as a system administrator? You're looking after passwords, you're looking after certificates, you're managing IP addresses. Guess what? In cloud, you've got to do that stuff as well, right?
Yeah.
You got to do that stuff as well. So, I mean, there might be Google managed certificates on a load balancer, for instance, but you've still got to know how they're deployed, how they're provisioned. If you're doing it as infrastructure as code, and you want to make changes to it, I was doing this morning. This is why I'm bringing it up as a point. You've still got to manage those certificates on the front end. If you want to make changes to them, add them, remove them, delete them, there's still got a bit of work got to be done there. It might be in cloud, but someone's still got to do some work around it, right?
Yeah, but certainly there's so many managed services where we can start to push a lot of that responsibility. I mean, we just mentioned the GCVE patching, right? There's a lot of opportunities like that where you can start to push things. Like, as if we were a traditional sysadmin, you can start pushing those towards Google side of things. You can take some toil off your plate. And you can start to, do new and interesting things, and, really start delivering new value into the business, as opposed to just I have to go and deal with this thing. I haven't got time to help you with this value creation activity because I'm patching this weekend.
Yeah. And not only that, I think the amount of things, that was kind of always half-baked. There was a lot of half-baked projects and half done, not done properly kind of things. There's just tons of that stuff around. And if you can pick something like that up and move it into the cloud, it's going to get done properly, right, in a cloud environment. So you don't have to worry about that, right? I don't know, load balancing, for instance, right? Who tests their load balance groups, right? I mean, you might test it once when you first spin it up, but then what are you going to do after that, right? Well, if you set up a load balancer in Google Cloud, it's going to work, right?
Yeah, and while you're at it, you can start making use of the monitoring solutions that are already there. You don't have to deploy something else. You can consume these services that are all there for you, and all ready to integrate with each other.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Draw another comparison there. What about I don't know if you've ever tried to configure Zabbix. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And
dealing with updating Zabbix too.
Yeah, what a never-ending pit of configuration. But looking at, cloud operations, just send it all to there. Oh, boy, what a life changer.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I certainly did a project where, we were using Zabbix and also like migrating from like Splunk to Sumo Logic, and like if you just consume what was just sitting in the environment, it'd be way better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, that's a whole person, more than a person, just spending their whole day doing that. Easy. Anyway, there's our 5 things that CIOs should know about cloud service providers. Anyway, we might call it quits there today, Dave. What do you think?
I think so. I think we're inching closer to the long weekend, and I'm excited.
Oh boy! After this week, I really need a break. I'm really looking forward to it. Crack out the camping gear and have a good time in front of a campfire.
Give that 5G a thrashing.
I will. Anyway, go to iTunes, guys, write us a review, and don't forget to check out Kasna Between Two Clouds. That's our YouTube channel. You can contact the show, gcplife@kasna.com.au, and we have a Twitter account @gcplife. And of course, you can check out our website. We had a little bit of a snafu with the GCP Live feed over during the week, and we lost the last 2 episodes, but I put them back, so we're back to square one, which is great. And of course, today's sponsor was Kasna. At Kasna, we make your Google Cloud solutions possible. That's all from me. Anything from you, Dave?
No, I just hope that everyone has a great and safe long weekend.
Yes, happy long weekend. Happy Easter, guys, if that's the kind of thing you do. And we'll catch you in 2 weeks.
All right, see you then. Hey, by the way, I noticed in my my podcast app that the last episode has now been renamed as The Dulcet Tones.
Yes, all right. It was a better name, I admit it. Still, I had to make the call. My show, my name.
Yeah.